Hello and welcome back to Take a Knee with Mike and JD. I'm JD, riding solo again. Logistics of the show, just unfortunately, me being in America and Mike being in Australia and the holidays, it kind of gets a little hectic right now. So, there's just a couple of things I want to talk about, and then we're going to do our picks. I have all of Mike's picks again like last week, so it's kind of amazing that we're here where both of our teams are at the precipice of a playoff spot. It's easier for the Packers to get in. They just need to win, whereas the Steelers need to win also, but they also need two teams to lose. They need Miami to lose to the Jets, and they need the Bills to beat the Patriots, which honestly feels like that's a good, that's a possibility that can happen. Miami's down to their third-string quarterback. The Jets are playing Joe Flacco, but the Jets do have a pretty good defense, so you would hope that they would be able to rattle, the third-string quarterback. Joe Flacco led them to a comeback win earlier this year. Maybe he has a little bit of mojo left, but I think the Bills will beat the Patriots. I mean, they just have to, especially what happened to DeMar Hamlin. You think they will want to go out there and, win for him. So my biggest thing is if we will beat Cleveland. Deshaun Watson hasn't looked good since he came back. He looked pretty good last week against the Commanders. One of his touchdowns was, poor tackling, which shouldn't have happened, but really we need to keep him and Nick Chubb contained, and we should be pretty good to go. Cleveland's defense isn't that bad. I think it'll be a good test for Pickett, to have Myles Garrett, bear down on him during the play. But he did a pretty good job against Baltimore last week, especially at the last drive. So I kind of feel good today. I don't want to jinx anything. It's obviously we don't know yet, but for both of our teams to be 5-8, in our shows a couple weeks ago, the Packers should start Jordan Love, see what they got. They're not making the playoffs. The Steelers need to play young guys, do all these things, and now here we are, both teams 8-8. Had the season only been 16 games, forever until last year, the Steelers would be done. Mike Tomlin would have his 16th straight non-losing season. The Packers wouldn't have a losing season either. But you got to play that 17th game now. So you would hope they go out there and win it for Mike Tomlin. It is such a funny record to keep, but to start your coaching career where over a decade and a half you have never had a non-losing season, or never had a losing season, is pretty crazy. So I like what the Steelers' defense has been doing. So since the bye week, they've only given up more than, I think it's 17 points once, and that was to Cincinnati. They scored 37 points on us, which is pretty bad. But as far as the defense, they're doing their job. Now, yes, the Ravens have been playing Nick Huntley. A lot of people call him Lamar Jackson light, but I was surprised that the Ravens didn't try to run more, and Mark Andrews was killing us all game, and it just seems like the Ravens had their opportunities to put it away, and they never did. The Steelers made a great tackle there with 4 minutes left to get the ball back. I think it was Edmonds. It might not have been, but they put a hit on the tight end. He dropped the pass. Had he caught it, they would have definitely tried a field goal with Justin Tucker, and especially against us, he doesn't miss. And that means that we would be playing to try to tie it, but they forced the punt. Kenny Pickett made great plays going down the field. He had a good throw to George Pickens on the sideline, who just sat there and came back to his quarterback as Kenny Pickett was rolling. And then the more impressive pass, I think, is not the touchdown pass, but the about 20-yard pass he threw to Freiermuth. He was rolling out to his left, and it's so hard for right-handed quarterbacks to throw on the run that way. You either have to turn your shoulders or kind of turn backwards in order to throw again. He threw the perfect pass. it was down low. It was to the left of the defender. Really the only person who could touch the ball was Pat Freiermuth, and he has very sure hands, and he caught that, and that really turned the drive around. Then you had that great reception to Steven Sims, which the ball wasn't thrown great. If you watch it, halfway through, it loses its spiral and starts wobbling, so that's a pretty impressive catch by Sims. And then you have, that now famous play where Kenny Pickett rolls out of the pocket left and finds Najee Harris running down the sideline to the end zone. I was watching the NFL Films slow-mo replay of that, and Jason Pierre-Paul, as a lot of people know, he had a fireworks accident a couple of years ago, so he's missing the majority of the fingers on his hand. And if you see, he has Pickett by the shoulder, and you would think that if he, didn't have that accident and he had, full use of his hand, he probably would have been able to pull Pickett down as he fell, but because he doesn't have that strong of a grip there, Pickett was able to escape. So it's just weird how weird these things work out, for the Steelers so far. They've won 3 in a row. They've lost twice since the break. They're 6-2. Really should be 7-1. They should have beaten the Ravens. But Mitch Trubisky threw those terrible 3 interceptions, and Boswell had a blocked field goal. But that's in the past, obviously. So if the Steelers do make the playoffs, honestly, I wouldn't be destroyed like normal if they lose in the first round. The reason I want them to make the playoffs is I want all these young guys. I want George Pickens. I want Kenny Pickett. I want Najee Harris to have more playoff experience. Najee did play in that game against Kansas City last year. He had his first fumble ever in his career there. And, they had the lead. They had a scoop and score fumble against Patrick Mahomes, and then they just turned it on. But you see it a lot, especially in different sports. Young teams will make it to the playoffs only to lose in the first round or very early on. But it's kind of like a rite of passage. You get these guys in the playoffs, and playoff football is very different from the regular season. It's more intense. You lose, you go home. So if they're probably going to play in Buffalo or Cincinnati, probably Buffalo. If they get in, Buffalo will probably be the second seed. That'll be a hard game. They got destroyed there earlier this year by more than 30 points. But I just think it'd be a good experience to get these guys in the playoffs now. You look at their draft assets for next year. They have 3 top 50 picks. They have essentially 2 first rounders. If the Texans win today and Minnesota loses, Chicago, I believe, will get the first overall pick, which means that their second round pick that the Steelers traded Chase Claypool for will move from 34th to 33rd overall. So they will have the first pick in the second round, essentially getting a very good first round talent there. They will have 2 top 33 players in the draft. What I would like them to do is, cornerback, inside linebacker, offensive tackle or guard to plug in on the left side there. Whichever one has the best available player, that's who you draft. And then you go to your 33rd, 34th overall pick between inside linebacker and offensive line. What position player left is better? You draft that person. Then when you have your second round pick, then you draft the third of those 3. I would be interesting if Joey Porter Jr. would be available. I like his size a lot. And I like the way he plays, not just because his dad played for the Steelers, but I just think he's a pretty good cornerback. I don't know if the Steelers make the playoffs and their pick would be somewhere around 20, 21, 19, somewhere there. I don't think he will be available. Joey Porter's probably going to be a 10 to 15 pick. But like I said, they have a lot of assets right now as far as in the draft. They could trade to move up. They could trade their first round pick 20th and the 33rd overall pick to move up top 10 or move up top 15 if they really like a player. The last time they did that was for Devin Bush, and that didn't really work out. Unfortunately, he got hurt, but he hasn't really been the same since he hurt his knee. But whatever amount of danger Mike Tomlin's job was in when they were 2-6, it's kind of gone. He really saved his coaching career right now. I don't think he would have been fired had they had a losing season, had they gone 4-13 or 5-12 or something like that. But there would be a stronger chance he would be fired had they finished with a terrible record. Now, I think he deserves a chance to rebuild the roster. He just left with his Hall of Fame quarterback, just retired. Some coaches, they should be allowed to grow and move their teams forward. I mean, he had been his whole career, and now he has to move forward, with Kenny Pickett and other players. So I think he deserves a chance to draft players that he wants, coach them up, and you can see that he wins over the locker room. A lot of franchises, like Miles Jack said, I mean, he played in Jacksonville, which have turned their season around, but, when you lose there, the coaching staff isn't great or doesn't push or something like that. The Steelers have an expectation of playoffs every year. They are that type of franchise. So it's very lucky to be able to watch this franchise, especially since the Immaculate Reception over the last 50 years. The Steelers have been one of the more premier NFL teams. So it's nice to see that they didn't quit on the season. Even if they don't make the playoffs today, like I said, it's very important that they got to this step. They let Kenny Pickett get that great experience in the last 2 minutes of these last games. He threw a great touchdown pass to George Pickens against the Raiders, and then he threw that great touchdown pass to Najee Harris to win. I think that does great for confidence. I think that does great for the team's confidence in Kenny Pickett. I think it does great for all the wide receivers' confidence as the catches they made. So, whatever happens today, I think they showed that they can win in the NFL. And next year, with more players, coming in, young players, high draft picks, they should be able to move forward and get better. The Packers, it's crazy. They were at 5-8. Now they're 8-8. And like I said, they just have to win. It's crazy. I don't regret what we said a few weeks ago, saying, start Jordan Love. You need to see what he had, because the Packers were really dead in the water at that point. But with the Commanders losing, Seattle losing, it really opened the door for them, and they took advantage. They win tonight. I think what the NFL would love is for Seattle to lose their 4 o'clock game, because if that happens, whoever the winner of the Detroit Green Bay game will be the final wild card. So I think, if Seattle wins, then Detroit has no chance to get into the playoffs. They would, but they could still play spoiler. That might be enough for them to go and try to beat the Packers. We can't get in, guys, but you know what? We can have a winning season, and we can knock the Packers out of the playoffs, and we can finish with a better record than them. So even if Seattle wins today, I think Detroit, Dan Campbell has really changed that franchise. He's gotten his players to buy in. They're a good team that they're a good team that should get better each year. Depends on what they do with Jared Goff and if they draft a quarterback this year. But Packers win, they're in. But yeah, I think the NFL would like it if Seattle lost their early game, because then Sunday Night Football would be winner takes all. Whoever wins, they get into the playoffs. So with that being said, we'll do our picks here. So we had our picks set yesterday. So Kansas City, Las Vegas, we both picked Kansas City. I don't think there's a lot to say there. Tennessee, Jacksonville. Mike picked Tennessee, and I picked Jacksonville. It just felt like Jacksonville had all the momentum. Tennessee was playing with Josh Dobbs, who was a draft pick from the Steelers. And while I don't think he's a bad quarterback, I just don't think he's good enough in order to stop their down, they're trending downward. They lost 7 in a row. And Jacksonville was playing at home, and they had all the momentum. Now, they don't win if Josh Dobbs doesn't get strip sacked, really. But, hey, Jacksonville won their division. First time since 2017. They're in the playoffs. It looks like they're probably going to play the Chargers. They're probably going to host the Chargers. I would not, be excited to play Jacksonville. As far as the 4 division winners, they are probably the ones you would want to play the most out of Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, Jacksonville. But I wouldn't sleep on Jacksonville. So the Chargers can't think, oh, we have Jacksonville, this is going to be an easy game. They need to prepare to play Jacksonville. So Mike, Tennessee, JD, Jacksonville. Tampa Bay, Atlanta. We both have Tampa Bay. They're starting Tom Brady. Atlanta hasn't really played that well. Tampa should probably close out the regular season on a high note after winning the division last week. New England, Buffalo. We both picked Buffalo. Like I said, with DeMar Hamlin and everything, Buffalo should be ready to come out and play, and also it would help the Steelers a lot if they won. Minnesota, Chicago. We both picked Minnesota. They might, get one more win in the column before they head into the playoffs. They're a strange team. They have a pretty good offense and a terrible defense, so their playoff game that they play might be a barn burner. It might be 42-35, something like that, whoever they play. Baltimore, Cincinnati. Baltimore is playing with the third-string rookie quarterback. Cincinnati, we both picked Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati is upset with the whole playoff picture where they are the AFC North division winner, and if they lose to Baltimore today, if they meet in the playoffs, they will flip a coin to see who would get the home field advantage, since Baltimore would not have an opportunity to then try and win the division because Cincinnati did not play their game against Buffalo. Here's the thing. If Cincinnati loses to a rookie third-string quarterback that's thrown like 5 times, maybe they don't deserve a home playoff game. Like they shouldn't be that upset because they should be able to beat Baltimore here pretty handily. So, like I said, I would be shocked if they lost to Baltimore today. So we both picked Cincy. Houston and Indianapolis. We both picked Houston, which, like I said earlier, we picked Minnesota, so that would mean that it looks like Chicago would be getting the first overall pick, which I don't think Houston minds too much unless Chicago were to trade it. Chicago's not picking a quarterback, so Houston should still be able to get either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, whichever one they want to pick, or Will Levis, who knows. But I don't think Houston should be that worried if that happens because unless Chicago trades that pick, which they may, they're still in position to get their quarterback. The New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. Mike has Miami, and I picked the Jets, obviously, because I need the Jets to win. I need Miami to lose, but also Miami hasn't played very well. They're playing with third-string quarterback. Yes, the Jets are playing with Joe Flacco, but hopefully they will come out and try to play spoiler. The Jets are out, but you would think that they would want to spoil a chance for their division rival Miami to miss the playoffs after starting 8-3. Carolina at New Orleans. Mike has picked New Orleans. I picked Carolina. I think Carolina played really good last week. I feel like they will end their season on a high note. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. We both picked Pittsburgh. I think it should be a good game. I am nervous about it because their season hinges on this game. But I think that they should be able to give some payback to Cleveland today. And hopefully, they score more than 20 points. The New York Giants at Philadelphia. We both picked Philly. They have Jalen Hurts back. They should be able to beat the Giants and secure that number 1 seed. Dallas at Washington. We both picked Dallas. I think Washington is starting Sam Howell, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays against the Dallas defense. But Dallas is still trying to go after that division win and the first and the number 1 seed. So I expect Dallas to come out and play very well. The Los Angeles Chargers at the Denver Broncos. We both picked LA. Denver has nothing to play for. Really, the Chargers don't. I think that they would be locked into the 5th seed by now. But they will probably... I didn't check to see if they're resting their starter, but even if they are, they should be able to beat Denver. The LA Rams at Seattle. We both picked Seattle. Well, I think Seattle will win. Like I said, I think it would be interesting if they lost because it would set up Sunday Night Football to be a winner-takes-all for both teams. Arizona at San Francisco. Arizona looks bad. San Francisco is crushing it right now, and I think they also have a chance to get that number 1 seed. So you would think that they would come out and try to win. And Detroit at Green Bay. We both picked Green Bay. I think Green Bay won playing at home. They have a lot of momentum. The Lions don't play well on the road. They play very well at home, but they will not have a home game in this or in the playoffs. So I still think this should be a good game. I'm hoping it's not a blowout like last week where Green Bay, just beat the hell out of the Vikings. But so those are our picks. I think we're either our overall scores, I don't have them tallied up, but we're within like 1 or 2 games, so this will determine who wins this week. So thanks for checking out. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment down below what you thought of last week and your picks for this week. Bye, guys.